Hey there. Welcome to Money Nudge. This is where we make money talk simple. You've probably heard the news say something like, the economy grew 3% this quarter, and thought, okay, but what does that really mean? Does it mean more jobs, higher prices, or that your favorite store might finally have that video game in stock? GDP sounds like an economist thing, but it actually affects you, your paycheck, your rent, even your morning coffee. So today, we're breaking down GDP, what it is, how it's measured, and why it matters. GDP stands for Gross Domestic Product. It's the total market value of all goods and services produced within a country's borders in a certain time frame. Think of it as the scoreboard of the economy. It tells us how much we've made and how much we've grown. If the United States were a company, GDP would be its annual revenue. It shows how productive the country is and how active people and businesses are. Let's make this simple. You grab a coffee on your way to work. That's GDP. You call an Uber, GDP. You get a haircut, GDP again. Even the Netflix show you watch after dinner. Yep, part of GDP. But if you sell your old phone to a friend, that doesn't count. GDP only measures new production, not used stuff. Economists love formulas. And GDP has one, too. But don't worry, it's simpler than it looks. It's usually measured using the expenditure approach, which adds up all the spending happening in the economy. Here's the famous formula. GDP equals C plus I plus G plus X minus M, where C is consumer spending, food, clothes, vacations. I is investment, like building factories or buying a new home. G is government spending, roads, schools, and defense. And X minus M means exports minus imports. What we sell to the world minus what we buy. Add them all up, and you've got GDP. Let's plug in some real numbers. Say, in 1 year, people spend $14 trillion. That's consumer spending. Businesses invest $4 trillion. The government spends $6 trillion. And exports are $3 trillion, while imports are $4 trillion. That's minus 1. So, 14 plus 4 plus 6 minus 1 equals 23 trillion. That would be the total GDP. When GDP grows, it means the economy is producing more. Businesses are expanding, people are getting hired, and confidence rises. That's when stock markets go up, unemployment goes down, and governments can invest more in programs. But when GDP starts to shrink, that's when things get tricky. It can mean people are spending less, companies are cutting costs, and unemployment might rise. If that happens for 2 quarters in a row, we call it a recession. That's why central banks, like the Federal Reserve, keep a close eye on GDP. When it drops, they might lower interest rates to boost spending again. GDP is also how we compare countries. The United States has the largest GDP. Then comes China, Germany, Japan, and India. But to see how people are actually living, we look at GDP per person, or GDP per capita. That divides total GDP by the population. So a smaller country like Switzerland might have a smaller GDP overall, but a higher GDP per person than a giant like India. Here's the thing. GDP tells us a lot, but not everything. It doesn't measure happiness, health, inequality, or environmental impact. If a country cuts down forests to make more products, GDP might go up. But nature just took a loss. That's why economists now look at other indicators, like the Human Development Index, sustainability, and quality of life. Let's recap. GDP stands for Gross Domestic Product, the total value of what a country produces. It's measured using spending, income, or production, usually with the formula C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Growing GDP means expansion, Shrinking GDP means a slowdown or recession. And remember, GDP isn't everything, but it's still one of the best ways to track economic health. And that's it. Now you understand what GDP is and why it matters. You just got a money nudge. Hit that subscribe button, and we'll keep making money make sense one video at a time.